Hello, and welcome to Dave's Delightful Dishes. And as always, I'm Dave, and it is such a delight to have you here in my kitchen today. And today we're going to continue on our potluck holiday kind of bring to a meal dinners, and we're going to do my version of shepherd's pie. And the reason I call it my version of shepherd's pie is because I really just don't like mashed potatoes. So what I put on in the topping instead is I use my potato pancake recipe. We call them latkes. So we are going to try that today. And first off, you need to have your ingredients. We start with 2 pounds of ground meat. In this case, I've got a pound of lean ground beef and then a pound of meatloaf mix, which is lean beef, veal, and pork. You can do just beef. You can do just any meat you like. I'm doing this because I'm thinking of it being a shepherd's field meal. They might not necessarily all have one type of meat that they're eating. And I thought it'd be kind of an interesting flavor variety. But you can certainly just use beef or just use whichever ground meat you like. 2 pounds of that. And then I have an onion, which I've chopped. 2 teaspoons of ground thyme. 2 teaspoons of dried thyme and ground dried rosemary. 2 teaspoons each of salt and pepper. I have 4 teaspoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard, and I'm using a coarse grain, but you can certainly use the stuff that you would roll down the window of your limousine and ask for. But of course, we have a half a cup of ketchup, a cup and a half of tomato juice, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. And then I have 2 cloves of garlic that are minced. And then I used carrots and peas. Frozen peas I had, carrots I had on the side. If you don't have or don't want to deal with fresh carrots, you can certainly get a mixed vegetable. And it gets a little bit of corn in there, wouldn't hurt either. But no more than a cup. I've got about 3/4 of a cup here. And then I have the actual potato pancake mix, which is 4 potatoes, and actually I have 4 large potatoes, but I have 6 kind of smaller medium potatoes here, and then half of an onion that I have grated, and then I put in a half a cup of flour and salt and pepper to taste, which in this case was about 2 teaspoons each again of salt and pepper, and 2 eggs. And they grind out. You mix all that together and you let it sit in the fridge for half an hour, and it comes out like this. I have I've got a recipe which I will attach for it, which I did earlier. I'll get the link for you for that. And this is going to be what we have on the top. Now it's going to end up after that half hour in the cool tank, otherwise known as the refrigerator. It'll end up the moisture will come out of the potato because of the salt and everything. That extra liquid, don't worry about it. You're going to scoop around it. Just try to get as much moisture off before we put it on top. But we'll talk about that then when we're putting everything together. Now, let's head over to the stove and brown us up some meat. All right, so I'm heating up this cast iron, and I'm going to put a tablespoon of oil on that, or thereabout, just to get the lubrication started before I get this meat on here. We're gonna end up draining the grease anyway, so it's no big deal. But I just like having it not immediately spot weld to the pan when we're cooking this. And this is probably going to be 2 batches because we got 2 pounds, but I did use my big cast iron. And you're just going to kind of split this up and get it out without crowding the pan. Let me get some of the other meats here. And you're working with raw meat, so what do you got to do? I hope you washed your hands first. And definitely wash your hands after. I might be able to get both these pounds on here. This is a good sized pan. But if your pan is smaller, don't be worried about doing it in 2 batches. All right. Now I'm just trying to even it out around the pan and kind of break it up a little bit to start. And I have this on high heat. And we're just going to go ahead and brown this meat. Little bits left over. Good. So that's going to brown. And I will be back with you when we are brown on both sides. Well, that took about 4 minutes. And we have some pretty nice brown meat. As you can see, there is some grease that we're going to have to drain. No problem. It's good to, you start off with lean meat so there's less of it. But we still know that we're going to be draining fat. So we set this off to the side because I'm going to switch that. I'm going to drain that and have that ready to go back in when we're ready for it. And I need another drizzle of oil. And we're letting this pan get real hot real quick. And then on is going to go our carrots and our onions. And our garlic. Now this is going to take a couple minutes to get hot, and we're just going to sweat these down. We're going to try to soften up these carrots and maybe lightly caramelize the onions, but definitely we're just sweating them to get them soft and translucent, and if they start caramelizing a little bit, all's the better. Okay, so everything is caramelized up and the carrots have started to soften. I don't expect them to be all the way soft, but I want them to start giving a little bit to pressure because we're going to continue cooking. So now I'm going to take my spices, put the thyme and the rosemary in, give that a stir around just for a couple of seconds to waken up the flavor. And then in is going to go my tomato juice. And I've got this on medium-low heat right now as I put the ingredients in, and then I'm going to bring it back up. So tomato juice is in, and here comes my Dijon mustard, my Worcestershire sauce, get all that Worcestershire sauce in there, pepper, salt, and my peas. Okay, and now I have to take my ground beef, and I'm going to put that flour into the ground beef, at least half of it right now, and we'll give it a little mix as I'm putting it into here. All right, here comes more. And that goes in. And now we got to mix all this together, and we're going to let it come to a simmer again. And I got to put my ketchup in for the final thing. And now, still on medium-low, get all this combined. If you feel like you need more vegetables, you can always have more. And if you are using frozen vegetables, like a frozen mixed veg, you probably don't need to spend anywhere near as much time with that. You can just cook the onions and then put the frozen veg in with it. It's going to cook in the oven. It's going to cook here on the stovetop. So I'm going to leave this on medium-low, and I'm going to let this come together. And then we're going to get ready for the next step, which is going to be assembly over at the workstation. Okay, time to put this together. I've got a baking dish. This was a 9x11, or whatever the standard size for these baking dishes. I like using glass. I like using Pyrex, but if what you have is a metal one, no problem. It's all going to turn out the same. I just happen to like using glass. Get my good arm here because this is heavy. And all of our meat and vegetable goes in the bottom here. And I got to flatten that out. If you wanted to make this for fewer people, you could do 1 pound and just kind of have all the ingredients, and then maybe put it in like a pie pan instead of a big baking dish like this. But we want to have a pretty thick coating of the meat. Otherwise, you end up having just way too much potato with just a thin veneer of meat at the bottom. And put that back on the stovetop. And here comes our potatoes. I've already drained a lot of the liquid out before I brought it over, but try to minimize the amount of liquid in there, but it's still a lot of it's going to cook off. And you spread that over the top of your baking dish. Now, if you want this to be really thick with potatoes, just add a couple extra potatoes into your mix. When I did this during the experimental phase, I used 6 large potatoes, and I ended up having so much of it that I had to make some extra latkes afterwards. So I went a little smaller this time, and I've got just enough coverage for like a thin coating. But I think that's going to be good, because that'll actually let this get a little bit crispier. And then I'm going to just give it a little rain of pepper over the top here. And then I have an oven here that is set for 350 degrees. And I've got a rack that's up high, because at the end I'm going to use a broiler. But for 35 minutes, or until this starts looking golden brown, just keep an eye on it in your oven, because the components are almost all cooked already. We're just making sure these potatoes get cooked all the way through. So 35 minutes at 350 degrees, and then we check it, and we're going to do 2 to 3 minutes at the end in the broiler. I'll get back to you when it's time to do our final stuff. All right, it's been 35 minutes, and you can see it's cooking really well, and it is starting to brown at the top. And if you didn't want to have any of the liquid coming over, you could always make a thicker coating of the potato pancake mix to really kind of seal it in. But I was going for thin this time. And you can see it's starting to brown on the top, so it's time to switch it over to broiler, which we'll do right now. All right, this is out of the broiler, and you can see it's a little bit brown on the top. Everything is fully cooked, and I think it looks pretty good. But what it needs to do now is it needs to cool down. You got to let it rest for about 5 minutes so that everything starts coming back together. If you cut it right now, it would all fall apart because everything is hot and very loose. We want to let things just slightly, for lack of a better word, just come together. So we'll be back in 5 minutes for plating. All right, we're back, and it's time for service. And I actually probably want my little hot gloves here. So this size plate with the amount of food that we have, I'm going to want to put this into thirds the long way, and then, trying to make squares out of it. So let me get myself a nice control hand. Go a third of the way in. It's almost like cutting brownies. And then a third the other way. For a variation, if you wanted to, you could totally put cheese on the top of this, and I'm sure lots of people would love it. Okay, we'll finish cutting the rest of them later. So now I'm going to get one portion, and hopefully it all stays together. Looks like it did. Drop that down onto the plate. And look, we have 4, 5, 7, like 21 portions, let's call it, that you can have for your next potluck. Everybody would love a little piece of this for their dinner. So have a look. It's delightful. So now that we've made this is something you can do at home quite easily, and it's an interesting take on it. I mean, if you wanted to, if you had some people that really wanted it the traditional way, you could go halvesies, half mashed potatoes and half this. It all works out. The filling is going to be the same either which way. But give it a shot. Let me know what you think. Keep on making suggestions. There's more stuff coming in down the pipe. And I'd love it if you guys would if you liked what I've done, hit like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And remember, if you ring that bell, every time I put something out, you'll see it. In the meantime, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Remember, the ingredients are listed in my description, as well as a link to the latke mix. Have a wonderful day. See you later.